Hopeful for tomorrow, good enough today. Oh yeah, hopeful for tomorrow, good enough today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Good Enough Today, the podcast where we share stories for people who are showing up authentically, even when life gets tough. I'm your host, Cheremma Lee, and today my special guest is the man, the myth, the legend, a community activist, a leader in his household amongst people, a man with an amazing story. I can't tell you, I'm so excited about this guest, Mr. Antony Jackson.
Hello.
How are
y'all doing?
you today?
I am blessed today.
That is awesome. I'm so happy that we get to share the same space. Like, I know how amazing you are, but I'm just happy to have your energy and mind together today. So thank you.
Awesome. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for being here as well.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So we start every episode the same way. Tell me, how are you feeling today, physically, emotionally, and mentally?
Great question. How am I feeling today? Mentally challenged. How am I feeling today? Physically great. How am I feeling today? Emotionally thriving.
Oh, nice. Okay, so if you would, and I'm happy that you answered it this way because I'm going to ask you to put a number to it, but I want you to put a number to challenged. What is you feeling challenged mentally? What is that?
I would say 9.5.
What? Okay. Look,
9.5.
Goodness gracious. Okay. And then emotionally, you said you were thriving?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say 7.
7. Okay. And physically, no, I think emotional must have been great. And then physically.
No, physically was great.
Okay, great. Physically was great. So
I would say 9.
9.
Yeah, 9.
Must...
Ginger tea, prayer, meditation, working out 3-4 times a week, scaling up to be doing 7 days a week, and being just intentional.
Man, okay. So see, you open the door right now, being intentional about it sounds like you're being intentional about your mind, your body, and your spirit. Where did that come from for you?
You're absolutely right about that. That came from experience. My grandma, she's very spiritual, so she instilled, God in me at a very young age, and my mother carried that on as well. So I come from a very spiritual background. So, at a young age, I was always taught to always think about your mind, your body, and your soul. And so I just carried that on forever.
Have you always taken care of your mind, your body, and your soul?
I would say no, but God has for me because I didn't always know how to, right? I didn't even know about emotions, real emotions, until I was in my adulthood. So, I never knew how to cater to my emotions in a sense until I understood what emotions were and that it was okay for me to have them. And then this is how you regulate them. I learned all that into my adulthood.
Okay, see, you're giving me too much now. You're giving me overload right now because how did you get into adulthood without understanding emotions or that, like, which emotions you had? Tell me a little bit.
Respect. So I always move with respect and love. And so I never got into situations really because I always respected people and I always moved out of love. And so that really carried me through until I was able to understand I have my own emotions. It's okay to not feel good. Um, and what do you do when you start to feel certain emotions as a man?
Oh, that's so interesting because, okay, well then what, when you got into adulthood made you start to realize that, hey, something's going on and I need to figure out what these emotions.
It was more of me just having the spirit to want to learn more about myself so I could become better. Also, because I have kids and I had young boys and young girls to raise, and I wanted to be well versed in all aspects to be a great parent. And so I guess you could say that my kids inspired that for sure. But it was also me just wanting to be better for myself to reach my fullest potential in life.
Now, I didn't mention we can now because I usually do and say we're going to strip that away. But you founded We Can Now. Can you tell us a little bit about what We Can Now does?
Yes, We Can Now is a nonprofit organization, 501(c)(3) in Austin, Texas, that works in our homeless space. I have lived experience with homelessness. My mother had me at the age of 16. She left the house, never went back. And so that spiraled us into homelessness when I was just a kid. Lived in the Salvation Army, lived in like domestic violence shelters, like Safe Place on Grove Street on the south side, kind of bounced back and forth between those and like some cars and some hotels and just every form of homelessness until we finally made it to the projects.
So I think that that's important. I'm glad you got where I was going with the We Can Now because I think that when people think of homelessness, they don't think of you. Right, they see you looking here and you're polished, you got it
Yeah,
together, and we don't think of homelessness as the family trying to make it and going through struggles, right? We think of it as maybe someone who made a bad decision.
right.
Can you tell me about, one, how you felt growing up being homeless? And then we'll talk a little bit about the mentality and the things that you've learned, and of course, I'm gonna get more into who you are and how this works.
Absolutely. Experiencing homelessness as a kid made me feel out of place. It made me feel insecure. And it made me feel like I was less than just being in the environment, and looking around and seeing people who had things that you didn't have. So it always made me feel like I was like second class, or second to other people in the community.
Do
Yeah.
you feel like that has impacted you as you've grown into adulthood?
Absolutely. It's impacted me because most people always say like I'm a very humble person. And that comes from my humble beginnings. And so like I can never get too high. You can give me $1 million at one time and I'm gonna be the same person because of my humble beginnings, like where I come from. So it definitely has impacted me all the way into my adulthood.
Do you see yourself, like, as you attain more, still having tendencies that don't serve you anymore? So still having a mentality of not having things, right?
Mm.
And not recognizing, how does that kind of work? Yeah.
Oh man, that was one of the challenges. It's like survivor's guilt, right? It's like going from nothing to something. But it really wasn't that big of a challenge for me because like I understood my purpose at a young age and I understood that God was using me and where he was going to take me. And so as things like unfolded and I went from like, you know, poverty to prosperity, I knew it was going to happen and I was just embracive of it all. And so it never really challenged me that much, but it definitely did in some areas.
Got you. Now, you mentioned knowing what your purpose was. How did you know what your purpose was at such a young age? And then did you initially embrace it fully, or were you kind of skeptical?
No, I wasn't skeptical and I did embrace it fully. And I believe it's because I just understood at such a young age and purpose that I understood was like, I always had a big heart. I always loved people. I always loved community and I was always solution based. So at a very young age, I was who I am today, which is like creating solutions and impacting people and places for the better. And so like, I've always done that, just it just looked differently. Sometimes it was on the basketball team, sometimes it was just in my own home with my mother or my siblings, right? Sometimes it was with friends and others with community members and people experiencing homelessness. So like I always have done things my entire life in kind of like the same manner, which is out of love to create solutions and to uplift people.
Now, how did you get such a loving heart? Was it just family wise, or you felt like you were born that way?
I definitely feel like I was born that way. Like, I feel like it's a gift, and the reason why I feel that way is because, like, I've went through some things, and I don't mind going through some things that I know have the, capability of, like, challenging your heart, and I don't mind going through and, like, I can go through these things and still be me. Like, say, for example, like, I could put my heart on the line to be in a relationship that I know, hey, it might break my heart, right? And I'll still do it, knowing that it can happen.
Man, okay, so you're much better than me. I'm gonna have to when we get off camera, we have to have some mentorship on putting because I'll be like, oh no, no, no. Let's say
I'm not saying that I'm looking for it to break my heart. I'm just saying I
you're
understand that
willing
it
to
can
take the
happen. I'm willing to take the chance.
okay, so when you're willing to take that chance, what gives you the self-confidence to understand that you will still be you after the
The humble beginnings,
okay.
like I was put through things at the beginning to where I had to be myself, regardless of anything. I had to be secure in myself. I had to love what I had. I had to love my family. I had to love my life. And I was able to do that and grasp that at a very young age. So it's like now anything can happen and I'm still going to remain who I am. I'm not saying I won't be challenged. I won't have emotions, but like at the core, I'm going to be okay.
And I think that what you're saying is that you're you walk into the fear,
Hmm.
right? You walk into the fear. And I say that I do that, right? But there are some things where I'm like completely irrational because I feel like I'm more logical than emotional in a lot of situations. Except the other day, I was walking in the cricket, right? And listen, listen, I know that I'm bigger than that cricket.
But Texas crickets can jump high
I
now.
said they can jump high and they're shifty. And I was like, oh no, right? And I was like, why is it that in these situations I'm not more logical, fear hits and I'm out, right? And I'm like,
That's the feminine energy.
because and I don't know why, but there are some situations where I know that it's not logical to be fearful, but I will still be like, you know what? I'm going to walk into give way to the fear. And so what you're saying though is for you that you can see that fear, you can understand it, and you have the self-confidence and that trust in yourself. Is that something that meditation helps you to produce or
Mm.
taking care of your mind, body, and spirit that gives you that sense of self that's going to keep you going?
You hit it right on the head, sister. You hit it right on the head. That's exactly what it is. I pray every day. It's in my logo, as you can see. Heavy on the prayer. Um, there's not a day that goes by that I don't pray multiple times. And I mean, when I mean prayer, I mean like take a moment out to either close my eyes, keep my eyes open, intentional about my word and what I'm manifesting, right? And so I do that multiple times a day, all day. I can't tell you a day that I've never done it. And working out definitely helps me with my mental and it helps me with my physical, helps me breathe. It helps me just really create a safe space of solitude for me to be in, to express in a certain way. And meditation helps me be silent. We live in a world where there's a lot of noise, a lot of doubt, a lot of fear. I mean, just everywhere you look, coming out of your family, your friends, people next to you. And I feel like we have to be conscious of that because that stuff can get into us and it can alter how we view the world and how we move in the world and how we do things. And so meditation helps me just be silent, quiet the noise, go within myself, you know, meditate on strengths, meditate on weaknesses, and really doctor myself. And when I come out of that meditation, I have a direction of, for one, where I am and where I want to go.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you mentioned, meditating on your strengths and your weaknesses. How do you not allow the weaknesses to how do you to not allow yourself to get too focused on the weaknesses so that you don't allow your strengths to, oh, you know what I mean? Because I feel like we are much more prone to focus on the negative and the things we need to work on instead of saying, not this is where I'm strong, this weakness is here, let me get a little step here and let these strengths. But it sounds like, and from what I've experienced being around you, your strengths are what you focus on and those weaknesses you kind of just chip away at, right?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head again. You know something. You know a whole lot. I definitely lean into my strengths because my strengths allow me to do what I do. So I definitely tap into it and I lean with it. But like you said, I do gradually or to whatever capacity I can focus on my weaknesses day by day by day by day as well. And they eventually get stronger.
Now, excuse me, do you have mentors or who do you lean on? Because you're running We Can now. You're being this strength in the community for so many other people. Who helps you?
God has helped me and continues to help me. But as a person who always wants to get better, like I mentioned, I told myself that I would like some mentors and that I also need mentors, right? I had to get to that. And I've always wanted that. Let me give my mom some credit. When, I grew up single parent household, but when I was a sophomore in high school, living in Rosewood Projects on the east side of Austin, 78702 zip code, my mother did the genius thing, which just put me and my siblings into the Big Brothers Big Sisters program.
Mhm.
And in that moment, I was able to feel the impact of mentors, right? And it filled gaps because my father wasn't there. All my uncles went to prison. So we didn't have any men that were in our lives teaching us anything. So she put us in Big Brothers Big Sisters. She couldn't make the games. He did, and my mentor looked like Shaggy from Scooby Doo, right? So think of an urban kid and hood, you know what I mean? And then some big 6'9" white guy with shaggy hair pulling up to the projects, knocking on the door. I'm leaving with him. We showing up at different places. People looking like, what is going on?
I love
But
it.
we built such a great, incredible bond. And at that point, I was able to see what mentors could really do for you. So not only did I become a mentor after that, like now I'm at the place where, like you said, I'm running weekend now. And I'm at the stage in my life to where I'm like, no, I need mentors, and so I've been actively looking for mentors. I have good friends right now that are not necessarily mentors, but I'm asking them to be mentors.
Gotcha.
And so I'm in the transition of looking for mentors and having.
And I ask you that question because I think that sometimes we think that we're at a point where we got it, right? And I think that sometimes people see us from the outside looking in, thinking we're doing it, right? We're doing it.
Right.
But I wanted to make sure that we touch on the fact that we all need help. We all need help.
All of it.
And sometimes we can pray and we can hear things, but sometimes those messages come from people outside of us.
A lot
And
of
God
times.
sends those people. And so I definitely want to touch on the mentorship. But I wanted to go back to one thing that you mentioned about being in a domestic violence shelter.
Mhm.
Um, and experiencing domestic violence or witnessing domestic violence at an early age.
Mhm.
And how do you think that's impacted you and how you move through the world?
Well, for one, it's a great question. It has honed my protective skills as a man. I'm already a man, so God has, ordained me to be a protector. And so those situations actually honed and shaping my protective skills as a boy who was actually growing up with no male figures. Um, and so that's how experiencing domestic violence has, impacted my life. And it also allowed me to understand why a man should never, ever do those type of things as well. Um, but I have to say, like, I was a 10-year-old kid fighting grown men because I'm the oldest in the house. So I'm really the man of the house because I live there 24/7 with my mom, and she leans on me to do big boy things, right? And so at 10 years old, I was fighting grown men because they were putting their hands on my mother in front of us. And so I'm seeing her be abused. I'm looking at my siblings watch and they're in shock and looking helpless. And so like I'm jumping out in those situations, knowing I can't win, but something gotta give. And yeah, experiencing that shaped my protective skills and allowed me to understand the importance of like what a real man is like and what a man who can regulate his emotions and problem solve and protect and provide, right? What that really is supposed to look like because I seen a person who is incapable. I seen what that looks like. So
No, I think
I hope I
that's
made
very
sense.
no, it made a lot of sense. Trust me. And in one of my former lives, in my former careers, I was a domestic violence advocate, right? I represented victims of domestic violence. And I think that we don't, usually we hear from the victim, right? We don't get to hear from the family.
Mhm.
We don't hear the perspective of the child or the person that is on the outside looking in, right? And how it impacts them moving forward. I know we can look at the studies of children. What I find interesting is that in some cases, people who have seen domestic violence, they turn into abusers too, right?
Mhm.
And you have chosen the opposite way, and to live and lead with love.
Oh yeah.
And I first off, it's commendable. But I think that I hope you recognize that that strength is something that a lot of people don't get from their journey, right? Because there's so much anger in going through that. And I did hear one thing though, is that you would get out there and fight people new,
Oh yeah.
right? And so were you scared then?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
These are street guys. These were grown men, physical bodies. I'm only 10 years old, so I'm 4 feet or something like that, 4 or 5 or however. These are 6 foot men, and they very much knew, like I was like a fly, like they just thumped me and I'm like, they didn't have to. Some of them, it was actual real fights, like fists and things, because I started to get tougher and I got to make something happen because every time this happens, I do this and nothing, we don't win. And so like, it really had me learning how to protect at a very young age. And, I will also say this, when I tell you about the love and how we're expressing that right now, I want people to be able to understand what that looked like in real life. So those tables always turn. And so what that means is like I became a grown man and I became strong and confident. And I've had my fair share of battles and fights and things like that, just being a male. And so in the community, guess who I seen in the community? Some of these same men who are now way older, drugs and certain things in their lives have gotten them weakened and in a very vulnerable state. And I've crossed paths with these men, just like I'm looking you eye to eye. And I chose not to do what I impose my will.
That's God right there. I'm sure that, the forgiveness, I think, because if you didn't have forgiveness, and people think forgiveness means that I like you, right?
Right,
And forgiveness means that what you did is not impacting me anymore. Like that holds on to my heart, my
right,
spirit, right?
right.
And so, how do you think you've gotten to that level of forgiveness?
I've always had it. That's what I'm saying. I've always moved out of love, always moved out of love. That's why I said I felt like God gave me that gift because I am still a human and I do get challenged. So my heart does feel this and that, but like the essence of it, it just doesn't budge. It's just love.
Nudge.
No.
Now, I think it's interesting that you also mentioned that you have daughters.
Hmm.
So how has
Two,
what you
Olivia,
yes,
my Olivia and Kinsley.
I I always love people with like with the best, right? We're the
Yes.
best. I'm a girl, but I'm always down for girls. I feel like we're gonna give it all to you. We're gonna teach you all the lessons, but it'll be good
That's
in the end.
yeah, so precious. So precious. Y'all are so
I feel bad. I feel bad for my dad all the time. I'm like, no, I'm sorry.
don't be
But then
sorry.
still, I'm like, can you give me this? I'm grown. I can get all the things. And I'm still like, we go to the store, we fix this up. And he does it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And so I wonder
Mhm.
how your upbringing, the things that you went through, especially with the men and understanding how they can be, how does that impact how you raise your daughters or the lessons that you teach them?
Hmm. Great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. So how does my upbringing with some of the men that raised me impact how I raise my daughters? I think it just helps me be a better man because I understand like learning through other people's mistakes. So I learned and I was able to see like what not to do, you know? And I think that's how it impacts. I have my own mind, and so I make my own decisions, but I definitely could see how I could utilize what I've seen from those men in my life that it impacts me and helps me, raise my my kids and my daughters.
So you go out to the community every week and plus some, right? To go and you reach out to homeless people and you're sitting with them, you're talking to them, and you're listening to their stories and then also trying to help in any way.
Mhm.
How do you deal with one, not being able to help everyone? And then two, how do you keep going when things get to be a lot?
Um, I lean 100% into my purpose. And so I allow my purpose to do its due diligence in the moment. So I don't feel like I tried to help people. I feel like I understand that I can help people. It just depends on what people see as help. And so even just sitting with someone can be help, or even just looking someone in the eyes can be help, or even just speaking to someone, hello, how are you doing, can be help. And so I always feel like you can always help somebody. It just depends on how you feel about yourself and what you consider as help, you know? And when it gets overwhelming, I do my best to understand that this is how it's supposed to feel because, you know, we're creating change and God gives his, you know, toughest soldiers his toughest battles. And so it's supposed to feel heavy. It's supposed to feel like war at times. It's supposed to engulf you, you know, it is supposed to challenge you and stretch you, and you're supposed to feel the emotions that you feel behind being great and being chosen and being anointed to serve such a great purpose.
So you embrace it all.
Ev-
Good and bad.
Everything. I tell people that like if this is if it's meant for me to for my demise to be in this purpose, then that's what it's meant to.
So I have a couple of questions for you. One, Um, if you were speaking to someone, not I talk about, I didn't mention it here, but being stuck in the suck, right? When things suck, you can stay there for a moment, but you usually have to get back out of it and start moving around. But sometimes feel like you're just stuck in the part that kind of sucks.
Hmm.
Uh, what would you say to a person who is stuck in the suck right now, and how would you encourage them?
I would say embrace it just like you would embrace the win when you're up and everything is good and peaches and cream, and you lean all the way into that and you feel every emotion and every fiber of what comes with that. I would say do the same thing when you're stuck in the funk. Embrace it, lean into it, appreciate it, because if you're experiencing it, you're absolutely supposed to be experiencing it for a reason and for a purpose. And so when you lean into it with all that you have, you'll learn to understand why you're there and what God wants from you, wants you to get out of that situation, which always equates to you becoming greater, stronger, better, and reaching your fullest potential in life.
Amazing. What's bringing you joy right now?
Serving, being a man that serves purpose, that has a purpose to fulfill.
You know, it's so interesting because I am in awe of people who know what their purpose is so early in life. And I wonder, excuse me, if you could put into words for the people who are walking through the world and don't understand what their purpose is. Because I believe wholeheartedly that everyone has a purpose.
Hmm.
If you're here, you're breathing, you have a purpose in this world. And I think that sometimes we get lost in the videos and the self-help and the things, right?
Hmm.
Um, how would you describe what feeling and knowing what your purpose is? And then the people that are looking for their purpose, how would you encourage them to try to figure that out?
I would say mm, figuring out what your purpose is for me looks like what God wants me to do and what not what I want to do. Right. So I might want to go play basketball games and play ball all day because that's what I love as a person. But God might say, no, I need you over here being a CEO for Weekend Now so you can help the people I need to be helped. And so that also leads into what purpose is for me, which is being used for the greater good of this world. And when you think about purpose, God is going to take care of you for fulfilling your purpose, which is what he has for you. But it's not only going to take care of you, it's going to take care of a multitude of people. And that's when you know you're serving your purpose, because your gift is not for you, it's for the world. But you will benefit from your gift tremendously as well. But it's not just for you, it's for others to benefit. And so that's what I would say, you know, purpose is to me. And how you find it is you ask yourself, what brings you joy? You know, what brings me joy is seeing somebody happy. What brings me joy is seeing somebody go from bad to good. What brings me joy is seeing everybody have a, you know, equal piece of the pie, and everyone's healthy and reaching their fullest potential. And so, and my purpose, these are the solutions, you know, and this is what I see. And that's what brings me joy, is that I'm a man with purpose that God gave me, and you could clearly see what your purpose is doing.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I told you guys he was awesome. What's hard for you, right?
What's hard for me is mentally getting hard out of my mind, because it's not hard. I think I put those restraints on myself in a human way. You know, challenges, you know, I love challenges. And so it's not hard, honestly. We just make it seem like it's hard for whatever reason that we want to, you know, say it's hard for. Oh, it's hard because I don't have money. It's hard because it's not hard at all. Those are just excuses. And so that's what's hard for me, is getting out of my own mind and putting those restraints on myself that kind of slows the process down, or just allows other confusion to come in while I'm serving purpose. When you're serving purpose, it's black and white. It is what it is. You don't have to worry. You don't have to do anything but just be. And so while doing that, I get in, the human side gets into a monk.
Yeah, you're a monk. You have this zen about you, right? You have this zen where you don't want to get too high, you don't want to get too low. But I think I like this discussion about it being hard, and how sometimes we complicate hard, is what you're saying, is that we make it, because I think what starts to happen is the emotions come with it, right? You start to think, well, why am I having to do this? And
pressures from others.
Yes, and then you have the people and expectations from other people. And you're like, well, hold on. And then you start to get some resentment, then you get some anger, you get some fear, you get some, you know, all these emotions come in, and then those emotions become much harder than probably the problem actually is.
Go ahead. Come on, sister.
So when we talk about being hard, because I'm thinking about this, right? And then we were talking beforehand about how I've gone through this journey about being sick, and I'm like, you know, being sick is hard, right? It's hard, but the harder part is everything else that goes along with it, and the things that you think that are failing, and there's all these things and these expectations for yourself.
Because you could do it again.
Right. And I know that I'm going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those things where we think about hard. So let's think about that a little bit, because and I'm, you know, as you're saying this, I'm going back in my life and thinking about when things have been hard and how did I make it a little bit harder, right? Like, so you are actively working to, for lack of a better term, keep the main issue the main issue.
I am working to quiet the noise and focus on the purpose, laser beam focus, and just hear God and the mission.
That is amazing. That's amazing. That right there, I think if we don't hear anything else about the focus on the mission and the challenges are going to come. That's life, right? The challenges, but you said you're solution oriented, right?
Yes.
You're a problem solver. I can solve problems. I know I can solve problems. This is just a difficult problem. Let me focus on solving the problem. I think that's amazing. I think that's something that I'm going to take and be like, you know what am I doing right now to make this harder than it has to be? Is it me feeling like I'm not going to be enough for other people?
Right.
Is it me feeling like I'm not showing up the way that I want to?
But that also goes back to what you said off camera, I believe. is you said the genius thing that like on Monday, if I show up with just 20%, but I give all of that, that's a success. And if Wednesday is 70, then that's a success, right? It's never going to be 100 really,
Mhm.
but whatever I show up with is good enough. That's what you said
Yeah.
off camera. And it goes back to that. And it also goes back to people being receptive to that as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. And I think that like, you know, we sometimes allow people to dictate, right?
Hmm.
How we
All the
feel,
time.
and it's like, well, I let them down. But when we look at it, we're giving the best we can and we're doing the best we can. And so because of that, sometimes it won't be enough for everyone. But you think about the people who have a whole lot and they give some of people like, well, you should have
Yeah,
given
more.
10 million, right? Instead of the 3 million that you got. But they don't know how hard it was for you to give
Yes.
3 million.
Or that you didn't have to do it at all.
Yes, yes, yes. And so I feel like, sometimes being service oriented, it makes it harder because you're giving and it'll never be enough for some people.
Yeah.
And then for some people, it's more than they've ever thought that you would give.
Yeah.
And I think that both can be equally true. And either way is still a success.
And that's where it goes all the way back to the meditation that I spoke about
Mhm.
of when you're going through these things, you're maneuvering through these challenges, you have to go to a place to where you can be in solitude and block out the noise and go within and say, what's the purpose? And am I doing the purpose? Then yes, then I am doing a great job.
Mhm. That's amazing.
And that way, the next day when you come out of your meditation, you fill your own cup, you have your own perspective, so you don't have to listen to the noise. But when it comes, you know how to deal with it, so you can serve the purpose in a way that's healthy.
That's great. Now, how did you learn to meditate?
I guess it just came from prayer. I always been praying my whole life. Like I said, I'm always trying to learn and grow. And so like what's after prayer is like meditation. And so it like organically happened. And of course I read books and I watch podcasts. And so you hear people speaking about meditation. And so it kind of just organically happened. But yeah,
Now, before I'm going to be respectful of your time,
I've been meditating since I was like 6 or 7 or 8. Like my mom and my auntie have a story of when I was like on the back porch at nighttime, like talking into the night by myself and like very calm and very peaceful and just, they have a story of that.
oh, you are
I've
like,
never heard that before though.
you are, I promise you're naturally just like, what this is what I do. If you guys could have seen my face when he said that, like, yeah, I told you, that's just what it is. That's not normal and not in a bad way,
Right,
right?
right.
But to be able to take a moment, and if we can learn that at such an early age, I think that that would help to quiet all those things as you go through different stages of life, right?
Hmm.
Because we don't really learn to sit still, quiet your mind,
Hmm.
and figure out, okay, what is it that I really want and need, and kind of move forward through there. And of course, it looks different at different ages, but
Yeah.
even just to sit and relax your body for a moment before you go.
Wow.
And so for you to be able to, when you said that you always knew your purpose, I think that that was you acting it out, and that's something that I think that a lot of people don't have at such an early age. So that's a blessing. I that is amazing. But I know, see, I knew I was like, "Man, he's got this like you have a zen about you." But I also think that it makes it so that you can approach people who are in very, very difficult situations
That too.
and they
Helps
will
with that.
they will feel your calm,
Hmm.
and that calm can be contagious. And I think that that is part of your gift, right?
Yeah.
In doing and living out your purpose. I want to go back because I feel like I'm doing your sons a disservice
Hmm.
by asking but not asking how were your experiences in the domestic violence? How have that has that impacted how you parent your sons as well?
Hmm. Never been asked that question either. Um, I don't think domestic violence has really impacted how I raise my sons. And if so, like subconsciously, it probably just makes me a little more intentional on raising them in the right way, making sure they can manage their emotions, make sure they get the information, make sure they're able to like use their own voices as a young age at a young age so I can learn them so I can guide them the right ways. You know what I mean? So in that way, honestly.
Yeah, I think, and I wanted to say that because I think that, I mentioned the girls, but I think that it probably impacts how you parent generally, right?
Yeah.
And parenting with love and then an
Yeah.
understanding of managing those emotions both ways because offenders can be women as well. But I think that it is very, very impactful in how you move and then how you show that love to your children and then how they express that to other people. So what you're probably doing is just being a great example, right? Of
Yeah.
what happens when I get upset,
Right.
right? What does that look like? Because our children in our communities mirror our attitudes, right? And so I always think attitude reflects leadership, Captain. That was from like Remember the Titans. So, and I think that that's probably how it goes. But I definitely didn't want that to go unsaid. Now,
What that looks like in real life, like with my 5-year-old son, who's a junior. God gave me a junior. He's my son. He just turned 5, Antony Jr. What that looks like with him in real life, so people can actually get a visual, is like he's still in like baby mode, right? And so as his father, I get to lead him from fetus to baby, from baby to boy, boy to young boy, right? And so I get to help him transition. And so right now, when he cries over things that he shouldn't be crying for, like he didn't hurt himself, right? He's crying because his sister won't change the channel on the TV. I have to sit him down, get eye level with him and tell him like, son, it's okay to cry, right? Because as a man, I'm like, man, stop crying, you crying. That's how I feel inside, right? But how it comes out of this is like this, son, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel what you feel. But right now you're crying over something that you shouldn't be crying over, right? Like that's helping him understand how to regulate his emotions. It's okay to cry. That's a natural thing. You can't cry over everything,
right.
you know? And so that's what it looks like.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Those are lessons that adults don't know how to do. When you think about
I had to learn it too.
right. And you see those people when they get older and they like cuss out their boss.
Yes.
Right. And then they lose everything. Or you see people that go to work, they get angry and they get out of character and it messes up their entire career or something.
Yep.
Right. And for me, and especially coming from a community that hasn't historically valued mental health, right?
Oh my
Or
God.
counseling, it's like, we all have work to do in managing our emotions. And I would hope that as we speak more about mental health and people think of therapy, and I think they think of like, therapist is going to judge me and I got to go through all my past and they got to bring up everything that hurts. And I'm like, the therapy allows you to see yourself for who you are. And sometimes that's not a pretty picture.
I think and you're absolutely right. And I also think at the very bottom of it, therapy will just give you someone you could talk to who won't judge you or won't even say a word back. So it'll allow you to just get it out.
Yes. And then sometimes while you're saying it, you'll be like, that's actually pretty messed up. Like that sometimes in your head, it sounds great. And then when you say it out loud, you're like, that wasn't my best.
Too great. It wasn't my best.
Yes, that wasn't my best. And so I think that just having that soundboard is of value. And I think that's important. So as you're talking about taking care of your mind, your body, and your spirit, I think that will be impactful for a lot of people and a lot of young men.
Yes.
Right? Because I think that even young women, we want to be able to do it on our own.
Yes.
Like I'm strong. I can figure it out.
Yes.
We don't have all the tools
right
to figure it out. And I think that is very, very important. And I want to talk about
or even if we do have all the tools to figure it out, those tools still have to be sharpened.
Yes, yes. And that's experience. That's where you talk about wisdom. And you find someone who's gone to school or taken a course or seen more than you have in different situations that can be like, oh,
Just have the experience.
yes, that's it.
They got the experience.
That's just like calling a plumber versus you doing it yourself, right? Like the plumber's seen all these things. They come in there, they turn it out like, oh, that was it. And you're like,
Right.
oh, that was easy.
Right.
But that's because they've done all these other things and no, you just turn it up, right? And so I think that's interesting. You work a lot with the homeless population.
Yes.
And I gotta tell you how much joy I see because I see your posts, right? And you take someone and you get them into an apartment or something. And so they move from being unhoused to being housed. And I think that's amazing. Um, what do you think right now is impacting the homeless population the most?
What I think is impacting the homeless population most here in Austin, Texas, is the fact that the actual system, the homeless response system in Austin, has allowed people with lived experience like myself to actually be a part of the system to create change. I think that's been one of the greatest things that has actually caused change, because you have people, it's like we were just talking about, the lived experience, the person who's been through it and they know. So we've actually allowed, or the system has actually allowed people with lived experience to come impact the system in many ways, right? And so you have people like me, who's a CEO from Austin, who experienced homelessness and created this organization with God, right? That now has entered into the system, right? So now I get to bring all of my experience and my wisdom and what God has given me to the system to change it. And then also on the bottom level, they allow, because of people have said, hey, you need more people with lived experience to be a part. Now they allow people who are actually experiencing homelessness now to come speak in meetings and to come be decision makers, and to ask them, are we hitting it on the head, or are we dropping the ball, and allowing the person who's experiencing homelessness right now to make the decision. I think that's what's impacted Austin's homelessness right now.
From your experience or understanding, what are common reasons that people become homeless?
That's a great question. Common reasons that someone will become homeless: gentrification, which means you're being displaced in the system because you can't afford to live in a certain area anymore, even though you've been living there generations before you've been living there, generations before them been living there. A death in the family. So you gotta think about people who have lost a loved one, a husband or a wife, and that person was maybe the breadwinner or the emotional support or whatever to that union, left, and that person just couldn't handle it. Right. You got to also think about mothers who may have, or parents who've lost kids that they haven't been, and so they turn to alcohol or drugs or something. And then, right, also foster care. A lot of people don't know that children in foster care, once they turn 18, it's just like you open up the door and say, hey, you're 18, you don't qualify for these services anymore, and you got to figure it out. And like when you're 17, no one is sitting down saying, hey, you're about to exit out of foster care, so you should be thinking about a job or where you're going to go or what you're going to do. They're not having those. That's not a popular thing in foster care. I'm not saying that no one does that, but it's very seldom. And so you have a lot of people who turn 18 and they've been in foster care since 11, 12, 15, whatever. As soon as they turn 18, it gets cut off. And so now they got to literally leave that house where they were, and they end up being homeless because they don't have a plan, they don't have a job, they don't have this, that, and now they don't have a support system. And so those are a couple. Other ones are like, you lose your job, you get laid off. So just imagine being on a job 5 years, you're doing good, you're paying your rent, you're doing everything you're supposed to do, you're living comfortably, but then the economy changes and boom, you get laid off with 500 other people who get laid off.
Yeah.
And you wasn't even thinking it was going to happen. You don't have a plan. Maybe you even do have a savings of $20,000, but the economy is changing. So you're out there trying to find this, find that. You gotta have an income. You ain't finding a job fast enough. You're eating that savings up, and you don't have family or friends because you moved from California to Texas or wherever, and all of those things play a huge part in when something happens abruptly in your life, becoming homeless or not. So, and then the last one I must say is mental illness. A lot of people just have mental illness. So how do you expect someone who has a mental illness to be able to navigate through these systems that we do? Like for someone who doesn't have a mental illness, it's like, oh yeah, I could go to a job, fill out an application, I could drive here, go there. They tell me to be here on that time, I'm there. But a person with mental illness can't do all those things. So how are they supposed to survive in this and that? In Austin, we don't have a huge mental health support system. We just have integral care. And so I won't go too deep in it, but that's why you see a lot of people out there talking to themselves at the lights. You think that it's a drug.
Right.
You think that they did drugs and now they're out of their mind. No, they've had a mental illness and they just happen to be, and it's not being treated. And now they're homeless and now you can just see them.
So what do we do about it?
We do exactly what we're doing right now in Austin, which is bringing all stakeholders and all of the community and bringing everybody to the table to have the conversations about homelessness, which is the racism, which is the inequities, which is the displaced placements. And we'd be totally honest about what we've done and how we've gotten to the issue. And you have everybody at the table, and then you sit and you speak about, okay, what are our strengths? Where are we going? Who's going to do what? Everybody's going to have a hand in it. Everyone's going to be respected. Everyone's going to be heard. And then we move forward as a unit to be able to take care of our great city. And I keep saying Austin because you got to start at home before you can take care of the world. And Austin is doing a pretty okay job at that. And we just celebrated something yesterday with all of the stakeholders, like the mayors were there, Kirk and Steve Adler and Echo and philanthropists and nonprofits were there. And we kind of celebrated like that we have moved the needle because of these changes that we've made in Austin, which the rest of the country is not on. We're actually the leaders. So that's what we do.
That's amazing. I think that I wanted to highlight that because sometimes we have these notions, right? And I don't know how many people understand how close most people are to being homeless.
Yeah.
Right? Most Americans are one emergency away from being homeless.
Yeah, like 77%.
Yes. And I think that, we see people and we feel as if, oh, something happened or they did something bad and this happened. Sometimes life comes at you really, really fast and you're not prepared for it. And you don't have that community to be able to help you. And you don't know where to find the resources.
I can give you an example. The last time that I experienced homelessness was 2014, and it went like this. I was in college for 4 or 5 years straight, and I'm older. I'm making my own decisions. I'm that 21-year-old boy. I got a car at the time that I paid for myself, so I feel like I'm doing something. Certain adults in my family don't even have cars, but I'm off in college playing basketball, and I'm going forward in my mind. I've already been a big brother to my siblings. I've done so many things with my mom. Now I got to focus on me. This is the mindset I'm in. And so I'm out there in the world going to college, playing basketball. And 2014 I had one more year, 2015, and I would have graduated. But 2014, when I would go back home for my breaks, I would say, man, it's rough for my right now. We'd be here, we'd be there. We have family members place. So when I'm going back to school, I'm thinking about that. And 2014, as that year ended, we had a couple more months left. I said I could either stay on this dorm and be fed and be housed for free because of scholarship and play. That's how I said it, right? Or I could go home and take on this head on right now, which if I stay, I'm still going to have to do this. I made the decision to go home because I said, this is more real. You know what I mean? I don't want to waste no more time. If I waste 2 or 3 more months here at school, I could have been doing something over here that's going to help my situation. I packed all my stuff up in my Cadillac sedan DeVille. I still have it. I drove home. I was so disconnected from my family. And when I got home, I drove 7 hours. It was from, I went to Wally College at the time, HBCU, Marshall, Texas. I drove there home to Austin, which was 6, 7 hours. I get home at like, I don't know what time. It was nighttime, 9 p.m., something like that. I called my mom. Hey, mom, I'm home from college. Where you at? I need to know where to pull up at. And she's like, well, me and your sister are in a women's shelter and they don't accept men. And I was like, right from there. I was like, oh, okay. Well, are y'all good? Y'all straight? All right, cool. Okay, well, I'm home, so I'll see you tomorrow. Click, and then homeless. And that lasted a whole year and a half.
Oh, my goodness. My goodness.
Or a year and a quarter, like a year and 2 or 3 months.
Where did you sleep?
In the car. That's the picture that I have out there on this wall. And I want you to look at it so you could also see the spirit in the eyes. So it'll put things in perspective as well when you get the visual. I have videos of that and everything. For whatever reason, God just said, take pictures and record.
Yeah.
I'm like in a car at like 2 a.m, just snapping pictures and stuff. It's crazy. I don't know, but not crazy, but I know why now.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a lot of people's story, right? You have a plan and the plan does not go the way that you thought it was gonna go. And then what do you do? What do you do, right? And you reacted to that. But look at you now. Look at you now. And I think that that's why I think that it's important for people to hear these stories, right? Because if I was like, yeah, Antony was homeless, right? We discount what kind of homeless you were. You know what I mean? Like, it's like he was homeless, but he was sleeping with his, on somebody's couch.
Yeah, which is still homeless.
Right. And I'm like, yeah, no, but you don't understand what that is for people. So how can we connect with We Can Now, and what can we do for We Can Now?
Yeah, so you could connect with We Can Now through website, which is wecannow.org. We're on all social media platforms, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, IG, TikTok. We Can Now is the tagline on all of that. Our office space is 5426 Guadalupe Street in Austin, Texas. Or you can email me, and all of this information is on our website. So you can get our phone number, our emails, our location, and all of our social media tags all in one spot at the website.
Amazing. Every Sunday, you guys are out, right?
Every week we have volunteer opportunities where we encourage the community, especially those who want to learn more about homelessness or just impact their community in a way, to be able to come out every single week to be boots on the ground and to speak and, be in alignment with people that are out there on the streets that they either pass by every day going to work or whatever. Really get an understanding of what homelessness is and to really be able to help someone up. So that's every week at Sunday. Locations do change, but right now we're at San Marcos and Cesar Chavez, the intersection right next to the library, across from the yoga shop.
That's amazing. And the last question is always the last question. What does good enough today mean?
What good enough today means to me is that every single day I am good enough, regardless if I believe in myself or if I'm getting it from outside sources. Like every single day God gives me a day, I am good enough to be just exactly the way.
See, that's a great segue. You should do the outro instead of really, because you took all my thunder. Not really, but I appreciate you coming, being here and sharing your story and giving insight into who you are, why you are the way that you are, and the impact that you're having. You're a blessing to me and to everybody else. So I just want to thank you for that. And I also want everyone to know, and the people out there to understand, that even if you are stuck in the suck right now or things aren't going the way that you are, there are people out here that love you, that want you to do well, believe in you, and understand that while it might not be great today, we can stay hopeful for tomorrow, but you're absolutely good enough today.
Hopeful for tomorrow, good enough today. Oh yeah, hopeful for tomorrow, good enough today.